Hey folks, and welcome to the Daily Ratings Podcast. It's a show where each week we're going to be sitting down with Vincent Daly to get his thoughts on the latest movies he's been watching, both older films and new releases. And don't worry, there's no spoilers. Vince will give a brief review of the movie, share some thoughts, and of course, then rate the film. The daily ratings are always fair, honest, and most importantly, they're consistent. On today's show, Vince will be rating and reviewing. We have 2013's After Earth, directed by M. Night Shyamalan. We also have 2015's The Visit and 2021's Old, all directed by M. Night Shyamalan. We then have newly released, The Watchers, directed by Ishana Night Shyamalan. And then we have newly released, now in theaters, Trap, Daddy's Back in Town. We've got M. Night Shyamalan on that one. It's a Shyamalan family reunion. Let's see what Vince got to say about it. Enjoy the show. Vincent Daly, how we doing over there, baby?
Boy. How's it going?
Welcome to the Shyamalan family reunion.
Yeah, I was going to say the alternate title was Shyamalan Strikes Back. This is our second director study
that's good.
For the man, but I like Daddy's Coming Home a lot better.
Well, because his one daughter did The Watchers.
Yes, and then his other daughter is in Trap. Yeah. So Daddy's home.
So we're all here at the table. Daddy's home.
Yeah.
How was the Shyamalan? By the way, my voice is a little hoarse. I lost my voice this weekend.
That's all good.
How was your week? How was the Shyamalan week?
A week was good. I think I originally wanted to cover Cuckoo, DD, other various noises as titles for movies. But all of it was either knocked out by Deadpool and Wolverine or knocked forward, like in Cuckoo's case. So
it just got pushed a week.
So Trap was the only release, and like I said, I kind of just went with my gut. I made that quick comment on, I think it was the Twisters episode, where I was like, I'm still kind of curious about like his career a little bit. So what do you know? He gets the only second director episode that we've ever done. We've done director episodes, but no one's got second one under their
just
belt.
Full episodes.
Yeah.
We have others that have spanned as well. Spanned multiple episodes.
Absolutely.
Well, he works a lot. Every 2 years, he's pumping out a film.
Yeah, actually.
You think he went away. He didn't. He never went away.
Yeah, I listened back to our old episode, which is a great follow-up to this if you're interested in Shyamalan's career. You said it at the end of Knock at the Cabin. You were just like, give him another 2 years. And we're back. And what do you know? We're back.
We're back. We're back with Trap.
Yeah.
I watched After Earth.
Oh,
by the way.
Yikes.
Nothing else interests me except for Old because my boy is in it.
Oh, okay.
But I just went for After Earth on that one.
Interesting. Yeah, I think goals for this episode, goals for the
set the stage.
The second Shyamalan study. I wanted to watch Trash because I was on the road, and that's when I get in the mood to watch Trash. Mm-hmm. Just something about it is just like, all right, just whatever's on TV. I knew I wanted to save the Unbreakable trilogy because that's definitely going to be good for a future episode content.
What is that?
That's Unbreakable,
Glass,
and Split. So yeah, right. Like I said in our Twisters ep, I'm kind of curious about his latest films. This anti-twist or leading with the twist element and writing around audience expectations, I think, is kind of an interesting angle that he has with his movies. Mm-hmm. He has almost a relationship with his movies. But most of all, in episode 2, properly communicate his dicey career making movies. Last time we covered the obvious ones, including a must-watch of all things. Now it's time to cover M. Night in the 2010s, the Dark Ages. These are all pretty rough movies for the most part. So,
he's just he did The Sixth Sense. I think he was like 28-ish.
Yeah.
28, 29 years old. It's crazy. He was,
right.
And then he did Signs, and then he just continues to make films every year.
Yeah.
And we're really out of Pennsylvania now, it seems. Because he was such a Pennsylvania director.
Sure. He still tries his best to, as many times, at least one little thing. Actually, the only one I really wasn't able to spot was After Earth, of where it was tied to. But like even things like when he did like Last Airbender, the pagoda is, I think, in Reading or something like that, you know? So we also have a winner of the most PA. That was another question you asked in the old M. Night Shyamalan episode that we did. What is the most PA film? What is the most Pennsylvania film?
Yes.
And we have our winner this week for sure, for better or worse.
Well, there's only one it has to be, I think.
Oh, yeah?
Maybe, wait. I don't know. Ooh, stay tuned. We'll tease it, obviously, so people listen ahead. Any other opening notes?
No. I mean, like I said, this, to quote a former producer, this is one of them where they're all bad.
Okay, so let's jump back to 2003, just 11 years ago. This film is called After Earth. Had a big marketing campaign. It was being really talked about. Even when I was kind of watching it myself, and I was like, what was the buzz around this film? And I was like, oh, yeah, this was one of the first films shot and also screened in 4K resolution.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
They were using
I didn't pick that up.
The new Sony cameras. I remember at the time it was big. So let's jump back to 2013. Will Smith and Little Will Smith. And
Lil Smith.
Why don't you set this film up? We'll take it back and forth. How did you like After Earth?
Well, all I'm going to say is buckle up. Much like my desire to cover The Happening, which got a juicy 22 last time on the Shyamalan special, and even slightly why I wanted to cover The Watchers this week, I have heard nightmares about this film. One of the many internet punching bags over the years, After Earth was a failed vehicle Will Smith used to rocket his kid into stardom, whether they deserved it or not. The script was an original idea from Will Smith, looking to capitalize on the positive reception of including his son Jaden in 2006's The Pursuit of Happiness. Jaden also does go on to a semi-successful career, like the Karate Kid remake, for instance, in the later 2020s, or not 2020s, 20-aughts. But this approach backfired big time, as Jaden Smith brought little to the doomed vanity project, and in the PR circuit for the film showed he was just so incredibly unlikable in his rising star persona.
Like off the screen.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like it just like totally backfired as far as like much like Will Smith, you buy Will Smith, you know, you're going for the star. The exact opposite effect happened through what he was trying to kind of unnaturally push him into stardom.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, it doesn't help that he's not good at acting.
Yeah. And this this is a demonstration of that. It is real bad. Sadly, M. Night kind of suffers the most here, believe it or not. On top of the Smiths creating more noise than hype around the film, Sony shafted M. Night by removing his name from any marketing, including the goddamn movie poster. This was a reactionary move by the studio after his adaptation of The Last Airbender was universally panned as like one of the worst movies of the whole decade. M. Night commented on this with a variety of responses, but mostly saying the decision was made to avoid expectations, with After Earth being a sci-fi survival film and out of his normal twist thriller formula attached to his name. Kind of why I wanted to cover this, because I think this week is about examining how the twist formula in Shyamalan's pocket has evolved. But if you ask me, I think that line is bullshit, and Sony did our Keystone Boy dirty how you going to do that? How are you going to strip the director's name from his own movie, you know? It's unreal.
I mean, after watching the movie, I would want my name stripped of it as well.
You're right.
That's the thing.
So maybe he made out the best. Yeah.
Will Smith approached, I was doing some reading on it. Will Smith really went to him with the idea.
Yes. Yeah.
Did you hear about what the original story kind of was?
No.
They were on back road. They were supposed to be modern day.
Oh.
Just him and his son were driving around on back roads, and then they get into a car crash in a remote area. Will Smith gets hurt, and then Jaden needs to, whatever. And I was like, well, there's your Pennsylvania movie.
Sure, absolutely, absolutely, and probably there's your better movie than this, because this gets definitely kind of lost in its own trying to juggle sci-fi and clearly just not the comfort zone of M. Night. And I bring it up though because also it's
He was stripped from it. You're right, from the marketing and everything like that. And like I said, I mean, it's not like Will Smith had this idea, so then they ended on Shyamalan. Will Smith called him, you know?
Wow.
But what are you going to do?
Yeah, what are you going to do is right. After Earth is a survival sci-fi movie, not too far from something like 65 that we covered.
Yeah. It's in the back of my mind all day.
Yeah. They definitely both share this like overgrown Earth aesthetic and definitely the survival spin to it. Right away, this shovels out some heavy bullshit exposition to us, mixing multiple doomsday scenarios of humanity, all to introduce a reason for ghosting, a technique where the soldier can suppress all fear and emotion. Will Smith plays the legendary soldier that develops ghosting in response to an alien threat, but his son struggles to live up to those expectations in his shadow. And they go on a spaced bonding trip that goes horribly wrong. It really was like a space road trip. I think that's very telling that it started as like a normal road trip.
That's exactly what
Yeah. And they, what do you know, end up crashing back on Earth, overgrown, quarantined, and hostile to all human life. Tom, I try not to be too hard on accent work. I think now that you've seen this, I mean, you know where I'm going with this. I didn't know you were going to watch this of all things. The accent work, I feel sometimes it can be subjective around like what works in the experience of the movie, you know? Mm-hmm. I feel like there's a lot of examples I could make. What's coming to mind right now is like Dark Knight Rises, where it's like, yeah, this is outrageous when you hear Tom Hardy speaking with this accent, but in the movie itself, I don't know. It's kind of up to you to see if it works with the character and his vibe.
And you watch Tom Hardy and the Bike Riders, and then it's like, well,
what's going on here, Tom? Yeah, maybe he's the source of the weird accent work. I'm also a bit skittish from one of my own reviews. I incorrectly bashed Sam Neill one time for having a sloppy accent in an old review, and it turns out it was his normal voice, so my bad.
What movie was that?
Oh, no, that's bonus points for the folks to find. Listeners, if you can find it, I don't know. We'll send you something, I guess.
Oh, I know what movie it is.
Yeah. We've only covered so many Sam Neill movies. So. But for real, folks, Jaden Smith's voice acting in this is just god-awful. I mean, just the worst thing I've ever heard. At many moments, it feels like a middle school performance of like Shakespeare. Jaden shifts in and out of his real voice during moments of panic, and then when he's calm, the most like overly pronounced Queen's English, like it's so proper. It's like, what is this? I thought it was real bad. I thought it was enough to kill it.
I kind of just took it as he was bad at acting.
Yeah?
I didn't look at this and think dialect or accent.
Right. He's just
it's just bad acting. Like Will Smith, I don't see him doing an accent in this. I just see him trying really hard to be some sort of general, and he's not. He's Will Smith.
Right. And emotionless and not using his greatest strength, which is charisma,
But Jaden was all over the place with his inflections, and sometimes it's just like he's speaking South Philly, and then so maybe it's a little accent stuff.
Yeah,
okay.
I guess, but either way, I mean, he as the focal point of this, as much as Will Smith is in the story and his father in this. It's really Jaden's show when it comes to it. At first I was ready to blame M. Night for this, as like we mentioned last time with The Village, his scripts can sound almost inhuman at times. Also, someone clearly has to be directing Jaden to use this accent work. I doubt he could just whip out this acting choice and no less have it be accepted by hearing how terrible it is.
Bad.
It's real bad. Regardless of the blame, I felt, for me, this killed the entire movie. Many moments, Jaden is the only actor on screen and was not bringing it home. I felt nothing for the stakes of this survival film. Understand it's a survival film because I didn't care if he died. You know what I mean? It was just very, very visceral in that sense of just like, I have no attachment to this because I have no attachment to my main actor on screen,
Yeah, he was bad all around. He wasn't enjoyable to watch, and it was just this classic. I mean, we were watching a kid movie,
Yeah.
and the kid just sucks at acting.
Yeah.
Hey, it's not easy. It's not for everyone,
Right.
But it's just it brought everything down, and Will Smith didn't help it either.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but his portrayal of his character was just like, oh, what are we doing here?
Yeah,
we all
just
know
some
you, Will Smith.
Vulcan, Spock wannabe, no emotion, but then of course he breaks a little bit, I mean, it's like, all right, please, enough. Acting in this movie is kind of further highlighted as a problem because nothing else is really there to support it.
Yeah.
I'm the first, especially with sci-fis, to give praise to like design and like cool visual eye candy and whatnot, but that sci-fi design is dull. It's a mix of kind of overly minimalist, overly smooth looking tech. Nonetheless, it's just constantly has to be justified to us by funneling bullshit explanations into our ear. It might sound like an odd comparison, but take a lesson from Predator. Does any of the Predator's alien tech need to be explained? No, its purpose is shown through action. Hey, what's that thing on his arm? Oh, it's beeping like a clock? Oh, it's a bomb. Okay, got it. I didn't hear the Predator say, and this was developed after a failed exposition or, a failed adventure on a planet, and I had to adapt. No, none of that. Will Smith is the man in the chair, and he is always in Jaden's ear giving some explanation of the tech that Jaden uses. I feel like just a lot could be done there to either show it through action or just like don't explain it. I feel like it's really self-explanatory.
Yes.
What a lot of this shit is.
It's just comparing this to the movie 65.
Yeah. How good is that?
That came out last year, right? Yeah, that came out last year. It's just you can't you need to compare them because there's so much not happening.
Yes.
And it's kind of just really boring, and it's not a good film.
Right.
And you would think when you're setting yourself up in a futuristic or prehistoric Earth that's supposed to be inhabitable for humans, you kind of have the entire world at your disposal and what can happen, and then not that much happens.
Yeah.
So it was just, man, nothing was... it wasn't a banger.
No,
this film
not
is
at
not
all.
a banger.
This is not it. And I think you bring up a great point because it is such a gold mine of possible opportunities of like, okay, let's maybe do like mutated creatures, or how vicious is the plant life, or I don't know, take a page from Jumanji and like make it like this like slideshow reel of just like, all right, we're up against something new,
Right, the original Jumanji, yes.
Yeah. Right. Not digital rock Jumanji.
So, but I completely agree. The movie could be longer, but like even take The Revenant, which is still a movie that we like.
Yes.
Even if some critics hate it, which is shocking.
Yeah, that's garbage.
But the fact of just like he's in a can of shit, and then he gets out of it, and then he's in a bigger can of shit. When you're just like, oh my, when you're literally going in your seat, like, oh my god, how is he going to get out of this one? That could be amplified so much because it could be nonstop. Whatever you're dealing with. Animals, and then a bigger animal, or then rapids, or just like this, that, the other
it's
thing.
The mark of a survival film. It's stakes.
And this just, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Big Willie Style can't save this one either. I just wanted to say Big Willie Style because that's just like the best name for an album I think I've ever heard. Mostly because he is demoted once again to being this man in the chair. He gives monotone instructions to his son. He yells at his son. His son does otherwise. Rinse and repeat for an hour and 41. Much like something like Gemini Man, this just lacks Will Smith's strongest attribute, his charisma. I feel like also a little bit of a repeat of when we covered the Bad Boys. It's just like, man, it's like we're not leading. He's not leading with his best foot forward. And it only just further drives you into the pit of boredom as you watch this.
It's a muted character. He's handcuffed.
Yeah.
And it's a box you don't want to put Will Smith in.
Absolutely. And it's a box created, a self-inflicted box, because they come up with this like ghosting concept that I just feel like could be totally removed and not much changed because Jaden is not trained as a ghost. His arc is not losing his emotion. It's all just in this hodgepodge of like, okay, civilization collapsed, and then we had an alien fight, and then we gotta fight the aliens in a different way. It's just like all this stuff was just such a waste, such a self-inflicted wound. But folks, do you feel like watching an hour and 40 minutes of emotionless Vulcan acting and bland, muddy 2013 CGI, well, you're in luck. But for everyone else, steer clear from this vanity project, already forgotten to time and practically scrubbed from M. Night's own track record. We're going to go ahead and give After Earth 2013 a well-deserved 28.
Oh, I cannot wait to see how low we can go in this episode. Fill out the low ends, folks. That's my favorite. 28% for After Earth. Lovely, lovely, lovely. I'm not going to give it I'm not going to. I've been giving so many 2 shoes. It deserves a bad 2 shoes. I'll tell you that much. But boy, 28%. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, here we are 2 years later.
It's 2015.
Clockwork. Yeah, like clockwork. And this film is called The Visit. Mm-hmm. Don't know much about this film.
Oh, okay.
Set it up for us. Feel like this is going to be one of our last Pennsylvania films for him. Because I think we're in Pennsylvania.
Right, yes. We are in Pennsylvania proper, not just a name. Because, like, for instance, a good example, Trap. He says he's in Center City, Philadelphia. He's at the, whatever the Wells Fargo Center.
That's right. I'm sorry. Okay.
But realistically, he filmed in Canada. He filmed in Toronto.
So The Visit. This is a found footage kind of, I don't know, horror film.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, get into it. Break it down for us, and tell us how you liked it.
Well, I've definitely shown my hand on not really enjoying, the vast amount of these movies. But, for 2015, the found footage subgenre has had plenty of imitators over the years, and even more debate over who was the true originator of the style. While plenty of actually nerds of the internet will cite examples going all the way back to the 1970s, largely it was born into the mainstream with 1999's The Blair Witch Project, our rating at a fantastic 82. That was really a wonderful movie to revisit for the podcast. In the coming years, we see an explosion of this style. Horror further adopting it in projects like Paranormal Activity, and even sci-fi using it in blockbusters like Cloverfield. But wherever you land on this genre discussion, I think we can all agree by 2015, the style had been beaten to death, which makes our boy M. Night painfully late to the punch on this trend and no doubt influenced by his new buddy, Jason Blum, our favorite on the podcast.
Our favorite punching bag.
Yeah.
Old Blum bag.
Yeah, Blum bag. I like that. That's right, folks. This film starts the collaboration with Blumhouse Productions, which will continue for M. Night following with 2 films, Split in 2016 and Glass in 2019. Yet again, we have another era for our director with both his own style and audience expectations for his stories changing. Like we talked about before, I'm rooting for him as a creator, but I think that opinion formed at some time during this. He kind of came out with this trilogy out of the blue with the Unbreakable trilogy. It's just like, who was asking for this? But he's doing it anyway. Mm-hmm. I think this was the moment in time that I started rooting for M. Night, and also seeing him as, like I said in the last episode, his own worst enemy. He's like a George Lucas in that, like, you can't stop him, but he's also his own worst enemy, especially in the writing department. So The Visit is, once again, a found footage horror that feels like a modern spin on Hansel and Gretel, as far as like a fairy tale goes. Two kids visit their estranged grandparents and discover them having mysterious and odd behavior that is covered up with adult doublespeak, explanations covering it up. The older sister is making a documentary and is an inspiring filmmaker. That's where we get this found footage spin to it. And the younger brother, breaks out in rapping frequently.
Oh, no.
And get ready, replaces cursing with pop star names for the entire movie.
All right. So we've got this little white boy rapping and can't curse.
And no less, the raps were written by M. Night. So now we know that M. Night can't rap either.
Oh, that's bad.
This is almost, I don't know, this movie, it was very hard to pin down for this reason, because in ways it shifted constantly like a snake in between so bad it's good, very, very bad, and like, I don't know, there's some redeemable qualities to it, but not with this kid. This next to Old was the peak of like wow, I definitely still hate kid acting. We questioned it a little bit on some positive kid acting, earlier in the podcast.
I don't
This
think we
reaffirmed it.
Okay.
Yeah.
When did we ever like kid acting?
I don't know. There's a few.
We get you diamonds. There's diamonds out there.
Yeah.
And we always say Stranger Things, and then we,
Sure.
it's just like, oh, it's a movie podcast. So
Right. We got to stop right there. The style of horror here in The Visit is bizarre, strange, and meant to disturb rather than focus on usual jump scares. Certainly, common to the Blumhouse brand, even by 2015. And that's nice to see. Like I said, there are redeeming qualities of this where I kind of wanted to root for this movie. But the experience hangs on if you can get past some very heavy kid acting and a Shyamalan script that, per usual, feels like an alien wrote it, raps included. I would say, despite my snark in the beginning, I do kind of enjoy this found footage angle here. This hits on a very specific detail of why I think Blair Witch works in like its own kind of concoction, and it's that our characters want to be filming. Across the board, the main critique of the subgenre is why would someone continue to film, no less hold camera shots, cinematic shots, if their life was threatened? Mm-hmm. And that's a valid criticism. Having your characters being a filmmaker isn't a perfect solution, especially in the hands of children, but at least gives them a core motivation to the character to keep the recording light on. So I think that was important to the buy-in of this found footage angle. I also enjoy how the sister she doesn't really know what type of documentary she's making, so it does let the film itself bounce around in tone a little bit. The brother rapping and breaking out in these comedic moments isn't a great one, but equally, the sudden flashes of disturbing content around the grandparents makes for a unique horror experience. And that's why I just said a moment ago, like, really pulled in directions on this one. This one had like great qualities even to it, and had horrifically bad qualities to it. Which what can you ask more from an M. Night Shyamalan experience?
So how much does really... Okay, so you like the camera work of it.
No, I think the buy-in to the found footage is there. It sets
fair.
Yeah, because I'll definitely get into a moment where it doesn't work. But yeah, the distinct aura, or let me be honest, the real stench on this is without a doubt Shyamalan's own writing. That not only feels removed from anything a child might say, but is something I question if any human being at any point in history would say either. This aspect took me right back to The Village for the second time this week. Everyone just sounds insane. Like, no less children.
Yeah. It's a huge problem with found footage because you want it to sound so real.
Absolutely.
You want all the characters to just feel like real people.
Absolutely.
His writing does not do that. His writing doesn't do it in After Earth either.
Yeah. It's just so far removed from, anything a normal person would say. And maybe that could be a praise in some areas. I'll throw him a softball here and say it might add to the horror aspects, especially with these themes of like dementia and mental decay in the grandparents. Like what came out of their mouth, that adds an element. But honestly, what is slightly gained hurts the kids so much more. It widens an already massive gap in quality between acceptable acting and the worst thing I've ever fucking seen. And that's all within this movie. And it's why I wouldn't blame the actors here, unlike what we saw with Jaden in After Earth. I think like this is all. This
is all M. Night.
Yeah, it's all M. Night.
He needs a script doctor. That's what he needs. He needs write your story complete and full.
Yeah.
We see what you want. We see what you're doing, and then you can just get a guy in there that can just like, hey, let's make this more realistic.
Exactly. And in that statement is why I compare him to George Lucas, because like you look at the prequels, and I say the exact same thing. It's just like, can we just get a second eye on this?
That's really
just one more.
That's very funny.
I'll give away the goat. Tom, I'm very happy to say that this might be the most PA movie
Okay,
yet.
yeah. Okay.
This is what you were guessing.
Yeah, because it can't be trap.
No.
You know, and then I was like, is it the Watchers? Maybe the daughter in the backwoods of Pennsylvania.
Right.
But go ahead. What are we, a Dutch family here or something?
Yeah. This is a PA Dutch family. You know, this is a great consolation prize for this movie that is a train wreck in so many ways. I actually listened back to, like I said, our old Shyamalan episode, and I can't recommend that enough. It was a really solid ep. My favorite part was you said, what's the best Pennsylvanian film? This has to be our winner. On top
Well, wait. There's a big difference of best Pennsylvania film and most Pennsylvania film.
Okay. Out of Shyamalan, this is the most Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Film. Yeah.
Oh, not of Shyamalan or all directors?
Shyamalan.
Okay.
I'm speaking just to what what is in recent memory, you know. Yeah, and that's a good distinction because best, I don't know, that could be a lot of things.
Right.
Isn't Deer Hunter in PA in the beginning?
I think the Deer Hunter is one.
I think so.
Of course, Prisoners.
Yeah. Oh, don't get me started on Prisoners.
Anyway, okay, go ahead.
But
I'm tripping you up here.
On top of this, like homegrown camera vibe that's going on, Masontown, PA is so accurate to 90% of this state. It was shocking. It was like they were, you know, the daughter is like filming out the window and like getting like establishing shots for her documentary. Man, it bleeds Keystone. Keystone recognizes
baby.
Keystone.
Yeah,
I see you, M.
baby.
Night. It was really great. So a consolation prize, and that's it. Nothing more beyond that, because literally it probably doesn't matter to anyone but you and I.
It's true.
Yeah. Folks, where I want to end this one is actually on performances, because I think it's a real make or break for this film. And it is a make or break. I feel like there are elements here that really work. And if the performances don't bother you that much, I think there's something here to possibly recommend. Like I said, our kid actors are more suffering because of Shyamalan's writing, though Ed Oxenbould, who plays the boy, is probably the most unrealistic child ever to attempt to be an actor as well. I mean, not to shit on him, you know, some 9 years later, but like, no, don't put him in a movie.
And he directed a guy was what we were like, oh, what kid do we like?
Yeah,
Haley Joel Osment in the Sixth Sense.
Right, of course. And if anything, like so good.
Right.
The grandparents, on a positive end, are pretty creepy. And luckily, that's where a lot of this movie works, is with the grandparents.
Yeah.
You know, the sudden flashes of, like, age or mental decay is an interesting angle for horror because, once again, it's not a jump scare, but two, its objective is to disturb. It's to disturb the kids, ultimately. So I don't want to give away some of the punches of this, but like, for instance, the grandpa has like Depends, like adult diapers and whatnot, and how this is staged as a horrific type of thing, like something that generates horror, is so interesting because it's like, well, they can easily explain that he's like, you know, he's just an old guy or whatnot, but in the moment for the kid, that's real. That's kind of like disturbing in the moment, and you don't know how to react to it. And that's conjured through the film, and I want to give credit where credit is due there, but at the same time, so many moments come off as hammy and almost haunted house style acting, with them leaning into the camera for a big scare. You know, while these scares, or rather, I should say, when these scares are at their worst, these characters are literally just standing there filming the person trying to be scary, and the whole logic of the movie kind of breaks down. It's where I have a hard time pinning this, because many moments of the demented acting were done subtly and really throw you off in a way that probably a lot of audiences can relate to. Old people are weird sometimes. Yet the big payoff scares towards the end might as well be them looking at the camera directly and yelling boo. And I don't know where to push it. I don't know where to position it for that reason. So with that said, a little bit of my gut here. We're going to go ahead and give The Visit 2015 a 37.
Okay. I think that makes sense for everything that you were saying.
Yeah.
I don't know how much it could be better than that. When you kind of set the stage like that for us.
Yeah.
37%. Okay. Boy.
Beware of that rapping. Beware of the kid replacing his curses with pop stars, especially towards the end of the film, because he keeps it up, and it's just like, oh, okay.
Really takes you out of the story.
It takes you out of the story because it's supposed to be a kid,
Right.
You know,
Right. Okay. All right. Let's keep things rolling here, boy. We really. I would like to see the average score of some of our top directors, or the number of directors that we have a decent amount of movies on the site of.
Yep.
I'm not sure he's doing a very good job.
Yep.
So this is in 2021. We're jumping to,
right?
Which is he's done films in between this, correct?
Specifically, Split and Glass.
Oh, he's in that.
Between.
He's in that world.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
What world is that in again? That is his own universe?
Yeah, that's not connected to any comics, but it is a superhero story. So think like maybe like a Sin City.
I see.
The Boys, even. You know what I mean? It's his own comic world where comic books kind of exist.
Created by him.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So then we're through this, and that's probably why you just put this on then.
Yeah.
We're on Old. That's it. It's the most simple titles ever. Old 2021, definitely out of Pennsylvania now. This does have my boy in it, which is Gail Garcia Bernal.
Yeah,
who you liked in Amores Perros.
Yes. When did he become your boy?
I was an early adopter of the Mozart show on Amazon.
That's right.
I like the show so much I can't remember what is
Mozart in the Jungle.
Yes,
yeah,
thank you.
That's right.
I found his acting very, very good.
Sure,
and
yeah,
compelling.
Yeah,
and then you liked him in Amores Perros.
Yes,
which was an early on
Inarritu film.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, anyway, Old 2021. Why don't you set the film up for us?
So, despite a drought in movies coming off of 2020, this was actually a movie I really didn't have much interest in checking out originally. After the conclusion of M. Night's resurrected Unbreakable trilogy, this movie seemed like an unusual return to more boilerplate story ideas, movie pitches that feel only slightly above a Twilight Zone episode and clearly carried by M. Night's reputation being revitalized during this time. And he really was at a peak, despite COVID.
He was at a peak here.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the hype around Glass and Split being a legitimately good movie, Glass not so much.
Okay, it was fresh juice for him, yeah.
M. Night had finally shaken the reasons he was cut from his own movie posters in the early 2010s.
Oh, right, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so, again, rooting for him. My biggest takeaway, though, watching this was really regretting not covering it before Knock at the Cabin, because I feel some key aspects are like dead similar here, just like absolute clone of each other. His focus on putting even younger kid actors in the story is a weak spot for both films. Younger than usual of what he's doing, what he's pulling in, and lower quality in acting to boot. Both also fall into M. Night's new approach of his iconic style, where he seems to be leading with the twist instead of saving it for the end. And finally, both could have definitely used some more time in the oven to lift the concept above its very simple plot line. It's kind of funny, in addition to simple story titles, his movie plots are getting simpler and simpler.
That's a good point.
It's more boilerplate, or not even to turn a phrase like that. Like it's like elevator pitches. Like, hey, wouldn't this be cool? And he makes the movie.
Which I think is why he's hurt that he's so quantity over quality.
Yeah.
Because just like you said, just let it bake a little bit more.
Yeah.
If he could come out with probably some banger ideas, but it's like you're not going to get anywhere near a Sixth Sense every 2 years. Hell, even every 4 years.
Yeah.
With the rate that you go on, it's almost like he needs to simplify everything and keep his machine going.
Yeah.
And it's like, take 4 years. It's all good.
Right.
Come up with the banger.
Yeah.
When you have After Earth, when you have so much working for you, you can actually run with it then.
Sure.
But anyway, sorry.
No. I think you're dead on the money, because really, that's ultimately where I'm coming from with the end of Trap as well. Is that I think, just give it some time, M. Night. Even if you want to put your daughter in a movie, listen, just give it some time. So, Old is a dip into body horror this time, with a snappy hook and a big cast that evolves chaotically to keep you at the edge of your seat. A group of vacationing families from Philadelphia. That's the only time in Philadelphia.
Yep, gotcha.
Or Pennsylvania. Are given an opportunity to attend a private beach, putting all walks of life on a dangerously secluded stretch of the island. Each of them starts to have increasingly odd events happen to them, most notably around the passage of time on the beach. Quickly, this escalates out of control with kids becoming teenagers, medical conditions progressing, and bodies decomposing right before your eyes. The victims of the beach must problem solve with a ticking clock crushing every move they make before they are all too old to do anything at all. Once again, the kid acting is horrible here.
Yeah, he's got some young kids in here.
Yeah, really young.
What is he doing?
I
What is
don't
he
know.
doing with the kid acting? I mean, he should outsource this part.
Yeah, maybe casting decisions.
It could just does he have the same casting director for everything?
I don't know. That's definitely a good research point. Maybe he sees it as central to his brand as the twist, because like it does go back to Signs and Sixth Sense. Having a kind of a kid perspective on everything that's happening. But boy, is it real bad here. The kids are bad. The lines written for them might be the worst in M. Night's whole career.
Oh, no.
I'm not joking. It takes only 6 minutes into the film for these children, these 6-year-old boys, to have a conversation joking about bank loans and asking people their occupations. It's like, hey, M. Night, no one talks like this. Like, I don't know. I don't know why.
It's so funny with the Lucas thing too. There's a great scene with Mark Hamill, and he's being interviewed. I think it's Johnny Carson.
Oh, yeah.
And he's talking about a line that he'll never forget because it's just the most unrealistic line ever. And he's just like, "No one talks like this, George. Like, I just don't think it's very realistic." And I think they ended up changing that line. But there's no way in here. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is with this guy. Now, it's based off a graphic novel, so I don't know. It's called Sandcastle.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know if that has to do from it. Because if you were just
an artifact, sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
They're pulling from that kind of vibe or however that flow is in that graphic novel, because they all kind of have their own little flow.
Yeah.
But it just seems like he's not good at writing at all.
Yeah, and it still pumps him out.
Yeah,
he's just a machine. I think it's a good point though that you make, because ultimately this does have kind of an electric premise. This beach, it's like a good Twilight Zone episode. You're going to get to know some characters.
Yeah.
They're going to go through some stuff. Let's see how they come out alive.
And it could be simple. It could be a quick shoot. I don't know, because it was probably filming during COVID.
I think so. Also,
I mean?
that's where this secluded beach angle probably is a savvy business move,
I think it totally works.
Yeah.
And how long is it? An hour and 48? I mean, it just feels like,
Yeah. Let me also, side tangent, let me recognize that this week was really a breeze in the sense that all of these are an hour and 40 films.
Yes,
so that's where I'm rooting for M. Night. Make a good one is all.
And I don't know if we brought this up on our last episode that we did him. He really likes to stay PG-13.
Yes.
And I don't know if that would you say that absolutely hurts him? Or does his brain not a rated R brain?
I don't know. Is this one PG-13
yes,
as well?
Yeah.
It is. Wow. They kind of push it a little bit. I feel like for old specifically, that is in direct conflict with trying to do a body horror.
Okay.
You know what I mean? This is about kind of a nightmare scenario of making the audience squirm a little bit of like, oh my God, what if this happened to me?
Right, okay.
And I feel like the PG-13 rating is always going to be in conflict with that. So... But interesting point. I'd be curious actually to look back if which ones weren't PG-13. I think Happening maybe was not PG-13, but clearly
I wouldn't be surprised if they all. I mean, The Sixth Sense is PG-13.
Oh yeah. The script for the adults isn't much better than this kid acting, but luckily characters swap over to being adults because of this rapid aging premise. I think I'm more so disappointed when it comes to the casting decisions here. I'm disappointed to the potential in these casting choices, which I was legit excited to see. Sadly, they all fall into very simple roles with clumsy defining moments ruined by the script. Like we talked about already, Gael Garcia Bernal, great from the Inarritu study. Excited to see him. Vicky Krieps from The Phantom Thread in 2017, largely wasted here.
Oh, she's also in the new... I think she's in the brand new Viggo Mortensen film,
really?
too. And apparently people are saying she's really good in it.
Yeah. A good actress. Absolutely. Kind of a similar vibe to, I'm missing her name, but when we covered Zone of Interest and Anatomy of the Fall.
Anatomy of the Fall.
Yeah. What's her name?
I can't remember.
Yeah, but similar like that, where it's like clearly she's not trying to lose the foreign accent, but good in its own right.
Good, yeah.
you know?
Yeah, and she is in that. The Dead, what is it called? It's called The Dead Don't Hurt, the Vigo film.
Oh, interesting.
We should give that a watch at some point.
Yeah.
It's going to be out on demand soon, if not already.
Yeah.
Anyway, these are the two starring actors, leading actors.
Yes, they're the main two parents.
And you're fine with?
Fine with. Nothing is done with them. It's like loss of potential.
Put them
is
in a
my
box.
disappointment here. Yeah, put them in a box, but also it's also like the moments they have to define themselves is just like it's nothing.
Oh, of course, yeah.
It really does boil down to a Twilight Zone episode because it's like they don't have time to have breathing room with it.
Like you're the parents in Jurassic Park?
Oh, maybe.
You're not thinking about the parents.
You really have to think about Jurassic Park.
Just keep running with it. Go ahead.
Rufus Sewell, I think it's pronounced, gives me another moment to mention the cult classic Dark City. It's coming, folks. We'll eventually cover Dark City. Maybe on my birthday I'll cover Dark City.
Okay, go for it.
And plenty of others like Thomasin McKenzie. Big fan of her. Alex Wolff, Abby Lee, all rising talent that I was rooting for to be in meaningful projects. None of them come out particularly strong here. And honestly, I can't quite put my finger on what's lacking that would make this work better. You know, I don't really have a solution here in looking at this. It's just kind of like it comes out as blah, you know.
Right, make it a better script.
Yeah.
Fix the story, and you have a killer hour and a half Twilight Zone.
Exactly. Yeah, maybe even shorten it a little bit further. My one guess about how the movie flows is actually a critique I don't think I've ever made on the podcast, and it's that the pacing is actually a bit too quick, believe it or not. By 30 minutes in, everyone has a pretty good hypothesis of what's going on. This lets the runtime cram in a lot of horror scenarios in a short period. We're kind of just bouncing around to everyone just experiencing the nightmare of this beach. But I think if the problem solving was giving a little bit more room to breathe, the body horror was maybe given some more time to marinate, I think it would hit a lot harder. Mm-hmm. There's just not enough time for dread to set in because we're constantly jumping to the next horror beat. And that concept of dread is very important when you're not doing like jump scares. You're not doing cheap scares in the film. Also, because everyone figures out the beach so quickly, the runtime feels like it's on rails, both for us and the characters. We're just kind of like waiting for things to wrap up, or at least that was my experience with it. So, where things dive off the deep end, and boy, I hate that it's a theme in these 2010s, these later projects of M. Night. The last 20 minutes, though, takes a pretty big turn for the worst, and just doesn't stick the landing, including one of the most ridiculous cameos from M. Night himself. He shows up in Trapped, which is definitely in competition, being that he talks about his daughter in that. But this one is definitely the most ridiculous M. Night cameo. He gets like a solid 6 minutes on screen. It's like, what? I obviously won't go into detail on this, but it goes back to what I said with leading with the twist. In old Shyamalan movies, take The Happening, for instance, the worst of the bunch, but still a good example. The twist is paid off is the payoff to the mystery. Breadcrumbs leading us to answers turn out to be slightly wrong, only for another answer to solve the mystery, kind of the rug pull on us. Here, characters peg it pretty easy, and now that forces him to make an ending that doesn't suit his style, specifically having a twist that tries to kind of create a satisfying story arc or have an optimistic ending. And that should be the opposite goal of a body horror or a horror in general. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. We shouldn't really be going out on a high note. We see similar awkward landings to the ending in Glass and Knock at the Cabin. Honestly, those both fit in the same brand of these ending twists. I almost wish they just were omitted. It kind of hurt the whole experience to it. So here's hoping Trap can do better. We're going to go ahead and give old 2021 a 38.
Okay, 38. This poor guy. This poor guy just needs a little bit, I don't know. Just energy shot of good writing.
What if we had M. Night on the podcast? Pennsylvania specific.
Well, we have Pennsylvania going for us, which is great.
Right, that's our only advantage.
Other than that, we'll tell him not to listen to any of our material.
Right.
Do we include The Watchers and new now in theaters?
That's your call. I mean, I get that we're late to the punch on it, but
we'll keep it new. It's still new for us.
Sure.
Okay. All right. So before we get on to our next two films, folks, and we just want to remind everybody that Vin and I are completely producer supported. We're not going to have We're not going to shove advertising onto you or on the site. It's not pay to play, so there's not paywalls, there's no tier structures or anything like that. Basically, it's the value for value model. And Vin and I have the website. We do the podcast every week. It's all there for you, and it's technically free. But the idea is that are you enjoying it? Are you listening? Are you checking out the site? We like to think of that as value in your pocket. Can you give us value in our pocket? It's the value for value model. So basically what you do is you go to thedailyratings.com and you head to the donations tab. And through your monetary support, you show us what value you're getting. And then also you become an actual legitimate producer of the Daily Ratings. So just like in Hollywood, when you financially support a project, you're a producer of the project. And that's kind of how we're doing it here. But it's your monetary support. It's your donations that you send in. That means just the absolute world to us. It does help us out a little bit as we grow and get the numbers up and get the value for value idea out there more. Every little bit helps and also means so much. When you do donate, you can send in a producer note or donation note along with it, and you can ask us questions. Do you have comments or critiques? Anything that you feel the need to say or ask us. When you're a producer of the show, that just means the world, and we want to acknowledge that. We'll read your note right here in the producer segment and give you a shout out and thanks as well. So anyone, if you're enjoying what we're doing here at the Daily Ratings, again, it's thedailyratings.com. Head to the donations tab, and you can send in whatever amount, no matter how small or how big. It's all there for you, whether it's set donations or you just peg whatever number and you send that in. When you send in your donation note, you can do it through PayPal or email us at tom.vin@thedailyratings.com. tom.vin@thedailyratings.com. Email us there. We thank you for all those who have produced this year. And if you want to be a producer of episode 147 next week, just head to thedailyratings.com. All right, with that, Vin, let's keep it going here. So did you see The Watchers in a theater, like in one of the, as they start to trickle down?
No.
Okay.
Actually, this was good for the on-the-road watch to tackle it. Just I had to buy it ultimately. But
it's video on demand. Yeah,
exactly.
It might still be trickling around on some of the smaller theaters.
Oh, really?
In the smaller circuits.
Interesting.
But okay, this is The Watchers, and this is a Shauna Night Shyamalan.
Yes.
And first movie by her?
First movie. She did some directing on her father's TV show Servant on Apple TV Plus.
Okay.
Or Apple Plus or it's Apple TV. But that's about it. This is fresh out of the gate pretty much.
Okay, so let's see what she does on a bigger platform. We have some familiar faces in this film, but let's just break down The Watchers for us, Vin.
Yeah. So this was an early release not too long ago, and while we didn't cover it, like I mentioned chatting about trailers last time, it was probably a dodged bullet, honestly. Metacritic with a dicey 46 and Rotten Tomatoes with an even worse 32. Uncharacteristic.
Yeah, that's
for
very
Rotten
rare.
Tomatoes. Yeah.
Very rare for those two things to be off like that.
Yeah. So I kind of felt morbidly curious to check this out and give Shyamalan's daughter a shot at the directing chair. And overall, I'm kind of coming a little bit lighter than both of those. This movie wasn't great, but I also don't think it was a train wreck like those other scores would indicate, especially that 32 on Rotten Tomatoes. So if anything, this felt like a gateway movie for specific youth audience, not into horror or thrillers just yet, and something that I was conscious of the PG-13 rating for. Not really realizing.
Oh, she got one too.
Yeah.
I just assumed this was rated R.
Really?
Well, the way the trailer was, I thought it was like
Sure.
this scary, spooky.
yeah,
thing.
right. It does definitely try to be super spooky at first, but that does take a back seat. I think that's also a thing where the criticism of the film are, because it's definitely the movie you get is not the elevator pitch. We're pretty much done with that 45 minutes in, and then it's something else.
Okay, sticking with the Shyamalan kind of thing.
Yeah. She is her father's daughter. As Shauna Shyamalan has some brief experience as a writer and director on her father's Apple TV show, like I said, Servant, a show that has surprising levels of viewership, especially for Apple TV. and an audience either loving it or tearing it to shreds. So folks, write in if you have any opinions on Servant. This is her next project immediately after that, and looked to be so much in her father's style of thriller, and it almost felt copycat-ish, and a poor first film to define Shauna's career, kind of breaking out on her own. The Watchers is a mystery thriller with a dash of fantasy. We follow Dakota Fanning, a party-centric Irish youth with a mysterious past that seems to be a mix of tragic and haunting. For her job at the pet store, she has to deliver a bird to the countryside, but when she arrives, a seemingly endless forest consumes her, with the only shelter being an observation box in the middle of the woods. 3 other prisoners are trapped there as well and are well familiar with the rules to survive. Stay in the daylight, don't open the door after dark, and be mindful that the Watchers allow them to live. Each night, the Watchers come to observe our prisoners like fish in a tank, and probably one of the oddest aspects is how easily the prisoners slip into their new roles as pets. Who or what the Watchers are the question, however, and you're in luck, because we get that answer pretty damn quickly.
I like the idea, by the way.
Yeah.
Like this idea, it's like, okay, it's a small film, but this has some legs to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And some spookiness to it.
I think even the trailer was pretty good. The trailer grabbed my attention.
It wasn't bad.
Yeah.
It didn't really give you much.
You're right.
You know, as far as conclusion or twists, things, you know what I mean?
Right. Turns out,
okay.
there's really not much. The film takes a hard pivot and becomes just, it's not really like a twist either. It's kind of just becomes something else halfway through. And I feel like that's what just threw critics off, specifically. I would say on the good end, the writing feels a lot more natural, which is great to see. That quality isn't hereditary from her father. However, this has got some big blocks of dialogue which are constantly info-dumping almost every aspect of the mystery here, prescribing us answers for anything you are even relatively curious about. Much like Old, this has some pretty snappy pacing, which, while we don't have really time for fear to set in, it kind of is worth it for how quickly this mystery moves. Mm-hmm. It's not like a boring movie per se. But the common critique online is about the story and how it just gives the audience way too much, and I really do agree with this. Each character has their own experience with the Watchers and gives a big rundown of what they know. This creates more of a show don't tell problem, where not only do we only solve the mystery by someone telling us the answers of the mystery.
Yep, nobody likes that.
But legitimately, we miss out on horror scenes that could be made to show us those clues, those breadcrumbs, I feel like that's what's really robbed from this, is its horror vibes. And I totally get where that's a frustrating aspect to the film. But I think why I'm coming a little bit more positive is that it still kind of could potentially fit in some sort of youth audience, kind of a gateway to horror that's not too scary.
I think that, and not only that, we can be attached to Dakota Fanning.
Yeah,
who's
sure.
very lovable and
absolutely,
and nice to be along with the ride with.
Yep. Also, I'm forgetting her name. The chick from Barbarian is in this as well as a supporting actor.
Is that Georgina Campbell?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, that's right. But it's important to note that it's not too scary, and that's where I'll kind of make a stand on this film. I'll give some credit for it being this kind of decent thriller that's only PG-13, and I feel like there's some intentionality to aim at a young adult market. Like I said, there's a dash of fantasy here that feels like it could fit into that genre of movies as well. For instance, I could see this kind of going after an audience for some of the darker Harry Potter films or Twilight.
Okay.
Well, that's not me. I don't think it's necessarily a bad approach, and I feel like Ashana's female voice as a director coming to this, clearly she probably grew up with those type of films, so kind of makes sense a little bit in the DNA. Mm-hmm. But I also understand how the ending leaning into this more, and specifically away from almost anything the trailer shows, is a big disappointment when the initial premise and that style of the story gets pushed aside. 45 minutes in, hour at max, really gets pushed aside. I understand that as a disappointing factor to the film, because I was kind of disappointed as well. This heavy twist, though, It did feel very reminiscent of our first Shyamalan special, where these type of big reveals, that's what made M. Night famous in the first place.
Yeah.
Now where Ashana falls short is in the themes thrown out in the runtime. There's little to nothing done with them. A small example is like this pet store occupation of our main character, and then this fish tank setup.
They're the birds in the cage.
Right. Literally goes nowhere, okay. But other than like, oh, that's, I guess that kind of makes sense, goes nowhere otherwise. Once again, these could have been used as the breadcrumbs to let the audience connect to what the watchers are, connect the dots for themselves, without being told every ounce of the mystery. And I really mean that. Like, any question you have walking into this movie will be answered by dialogue and not being shown.
Yeah.
And even in regards to her copying her father's style, the twist should ideally bring in themes, bring it all together in some way. No spoilers as always, but this dash of fantasy seems like it is just completely overpowers the ideas in the story in exchange for using its setting in a creative way. I don't know if it's worth it. And worst of all, the ending gives us a small dose of sequel bait, which I doubt will ever get made after the critical reception of this film. And if anything, I genuinely hope Ashana can move on to other story concepts, including a re-roll of using the Shyamalan twist. We're going to go ahead and give The Watchers a 41.
Okay, 40. That's good for this week.
That's pretty good.
Very bad box office too.
Yeah.
Of course, it's just it did not do well.
Yeah,
it really came and went. Now it was also, I think this was right around what was of course the big animated Despicable not Frozen
Inside Out?
2. Yeah, Inside Out 2.
Yep.
Frozen 2 is coming up. But I think it was right around that weekend too.
Yeah,
it just got clobbered. It just got forgotten.
Absolutely,
kind of left in the dust.
Like we're seeing what's happening with Deadpool and Wolverine on some of the smaller releases.
That's a good point. Yeah. Twister's still kind of holding
really?
its own a little bit.
Interesting.
Already has a video on demand on like the 19th of August, and it's just like it's kind of doing okay. Let it
go.
You're just telling people not to go to the theater and spend movie tickets.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, so the Shyamalans have yet to break 50 this week.
Let's see.
Let's see if the newest and latest can do it as daddy and daughter both hitting the summer pretty hard. This is now truly in theaters, now released.
Yep.
This is just out for a few days. This is called Trap, another ingenious title. We're back in Philly, as you said here, Vin. Set up Trap and get into it for us.
Well, he hooked me. The man hooked me. Not only did that second trailer catch my eye and catch my attention enough to mention on the show.
Yes, you did.
But with some trouble seeing what I wanted to cover originally for this week, the bastard got another whole week dedicated to him. So the first director to do so, and doesn't make me happy, but then again, it kind of does make me happy. I enjoyed this week of watching. I mean, I know these are like horrific scores, but I enjoyed watching this week. Something about being on the road. It's like the Cabin vibes. Like whatever's on TV, it works, And with this, it was just
point.
like,
they're
all an hour 40. I didn't have to put a ring on it, They were breezy watches,
Okay, yeah.
I knew they were all bad in some way, so I was like, didn't have to try.
It's interesting. Well, I'm glad you're taking this route because it's either that or it would have sent you into a deep depression.
Yeah, exactly.
And also, there's something about being home with Shyamalan. We're all Keystoners here.
Yeah,
we're all good.
Keystone proud. Yeah. Unlike the film we started this week with, Trap takes the polar opposite approach and leans heavily on the Shyamalan brand. Marketed as a new M. Night Shyamalan experience, or even titled as M. Night's Trap in some listings for the movie. And this is where I questioned how the twist has evolved in his own work. While this first trailer cut for this briefly tried to play keep away with the villainous spin of the story, soon after, we saw PR leaning heavily into the twist and putting Josh Hartnett center spotlight as our campy killer. I think this was the best thing about the story, too, and the best thing it had going for it. It allows us to understand the stakes of our character and that he has to escape the trap set by the police, all while giving the viewers a twisted character to either root for or root against. I think that this is where, when I say like boilerplate or elevator pitch type of ideas, This one is like, all right, you got it, M. Night. This is an electric premise. I think a fun premise.
And from the jump, that's why I was into this, and I kind of like the trailer along with you because I'm getting vibes. I like the idea. Part of it also, it just seems like a bigger movie.
Yeah.
You have a lot of extras on screen.
Oh, right.
And there's something about that where I'm watching a maybe faster, louder, more participatory movie, like that many people on screen and stuff, that's getting into maybe away from the horror, as it seemed, and you're getting into a thriller pace movie.
Yes.
There's something there where I'm just like, if this is a new M. Night, if we're getting into fourth era M. Night.
Yeah, I guess
right?
so.
Fourth
Fourth gen.
I can be down for this.
Yeah. Scale it down in concept, like in the heady concepts, and just make it an experience. I mean, that's where I like him almost in the branding of like, this is an experience. But
question is, where does it go? Like,
does it go?
Where does
it stick the landing? Also, quick bone to pick. The press circuit has been heavily marketing. This is Josh Hartnett's big return to acting. The dude has never stopped. He's just been in shitty movies. I mean, not even remotely truthful either, because Hartnett was in big productions like Oppenheimer and Black Mirror. Even if he wasn't like the... Yeah, exactly. I had to look it up, but...
Was he the guy who played...
He's one of the scientists in...
He's wearing glasses.
Yeah,
Kind of looks like Superman.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a huge role.
Exactly.
That's a huge role. One of the biggest, most renowned movies.
So... Yeah, this is big return to acting. Oh, sure. Shoveling bullshit our way. Trap is 100% a true suspense thriller that puts us in the shoes of a serial killer who just happens to be a father taking his daughter to a concert. The fake mega pop star Lady Raven has sold out Center City, Philadelphia. Scratch that. It's actually just Toronto, like every other goddamn movie. Josh Hartnett juggles dual lives, a domestic, corny father, and a murderous sociopath named the Butcher. While the night starts out fun and light, excited for his daughter to see her favorite pop star, quickly he observes the walls closing in around him, and the police, the FBI, and hell, even a mastermind profiler, very cartoony, intend on not letting anyone out of this arena until they find the Butcher. Without panicking or letting on to how screwed he is, the Butcher has to escape the night tailor-made for him that his daughter will surely never forget. Folks, concept-wise, I think this was a sharp premise for a movie. However, I think the biggest strength and the biggest weakness is framing the story within this concert. I think it's a large positive for me in what type of scripts I like, what kind of story premises I like. I'm a big fan of a story that has structure we can identify with. You know, a massive concert like this has a lot of set pieces that are instantly recognizable. When Hartnett is scanning the area for opportunities or weak spots, the audience is able to do the same, spotting security cams, maybe taking some notes of exits.
This is gold. This is great.
Blending into a huge crowd. Yeah.
This is like a bad Bond.
Right. Sure. Yeah. There is an interactive quality to it, and that's where I'm all right with even, this branding around an experience, you know? It lets the viewer interact with the story because they can do exactly what our character is doing, thinking of ways of how they would get out of this trap, and I think that's electric. I also think it helps the pacing because there's a ticking clock at play. Not only is the concert only going to be so long, Hartnett has to get back to his daughter to juggle this like father persona. But for all that praise, it does create some unrealistic moments in the narrative. And I feel like where this movie, I did not look at the ratings on this, Scout's honor.
Good for you.
Yeah, because I think I like this movie, but I didn't want to be tainted as always. But I think where people are going to have problems with this, because everyone has a problem with M. Night, is that there's a lot of unrealistic moments that will probably strip you out of the narrative. A very simple one that took me out of this. Anytime he takes his daughter away from this performance, she's like going nuts over.
Yeah.
Why would the daughter leave any of the music set behind? Why would the daughter leave her near front row position to the concert? You know,
Very interesting. I have not heard this as far as the reality of it or
Sure.
what would actually happen.
Yeah, the film is kind of peppered with these little moments that I could see the type of plot hole type of nerds of the internet, the CinemaSins and shit like that, will easily like just pigeonhole this to death. And I'm not saying that's wrong either. You know, again, a very simple example with no spoilers. No way in hell would this little girl, under any circumstances, leave mid-set of this. Like, you know, she's going ballistic over this. You know, especially around the fanaticism around Lady Raven, who is supposed to be on par with any pop star today.
Yeah, like a Taylor Swiftian type.
Absolutely, absolutely. But that's where things kind of chip away. That's where it's a strength, I think, a really strong strength of the idea of the plot, and then just in execution comes out a little sloppy. That is a great note and a great bridge to talk about Lady Raven herself, who is played by M. Night's own daughter, Salika Shyamalan. At first, I couldn't tell if this was a blatant nepotism to boost your singing career, or just another savvy business move. You know, he's a businessman.
She is a singer, isn't she?
Yeah,
in real life. Yeah, that's right.
So I was a little split on it. Not to parody his own titles, but especially with how minimal the soundtrack here is in parts, it really did feel like, maybe he's just, he's working savvy.
I think he's a family man. I think he's just a family man.
Yes.
That's what it comes down to.
These are Pennsylvania values here. Sadly, there is a moment, though, that it tips over to being too much of an inclusion. And in ways, there's a section of this film that it almost makes it feel like she's the main character.
That's not good. No one wants that.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like it just hurt some of the great momentum the plot had, specifically around the focus and the panic of our killer. There really is a moment in this, and I saw this with my family. There was a moment in this that I looked to the people I was watching with, and I said, I don't know where this is going. Like, there's a moment it was just like...
In a very good way.
Yeah, in a good way.
Wow.
And unfortunately, this is also the moment where that inclusion kind of tips over to being a little bit too much.
A little bit too much.
Yeah, a little bit more like... I think anyone is going to spot this and be like, oh, this is kind of like... He's just putting his daughter up in his own movie, It
right.
seems,
Adam Sandler-ish.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So that's an element there that I think it's a little tough. Moving on to Josh Hartnett, I thought he was pretty solid in this kind of like subtle fight or flight observation. He's quiet. He's not showing it on his face, but you can see his eyes are darting and whatnot. And us, once again, this is where the brilliance of this premise comes into play, because we know the stakes. We don't need him dialogue, we don't need him narrating over this to give us the stakes. We know the stakes. We see it tightening around his neck, the noose. But after sitting with this review for a bit, I realized I feel like I love the character more, not really the acting involved.
Yeah, sure, okay.
For instance, I love the dual game he has to play, juggling his father persona and obscuring the killer inside him. The more pressure put on him, the more cracks that start to show. I also think seeing what smokescreen he throws out is a fun movie experience. Kind of like a Catch Me If You Can from 2002. It's like, it's entertaining seeing what cards are played and what maybe cards are held back a little bit for later on in the plot, I think that's an entertaining story to kind of play out. I also thought it was a fun angle to take for the story to put us inside the boiling pot. I haven't made a food reference in a while, but it really is like we are just so center to feeling that white hot nervousness, that embarrassment when you got called to the principal office.
Right.
That's the energy that it captures. He's like, oh, I am so screwed, but he can't show an ounce of it on his face.
Of course, yep.
And I feel like there's just so many elements here that in the best type of M. Night Shyamalan type of way, he's really writing to connect with the viewer. He's really writing to connect with the audience. With all that said, however, I think countless casting choices would have been so much better than Josh Hartnett.
Do you have some in mind?
No, but like anyone else, he
Really?
yeah. Hartnett.
Would Ryan Reynolds be better in this role? Because I could totally see Ryan Reynolds in this role.
Maybe. Talk about a blockbuster somewhere that would need to come off with this. Hartnett benefits greatly from acting silently. It's these moments where he's not like a cartoonish character. He's not like going in the bathroom being like, what am I going to do? And, things like that. He's silent the whole time. Mm-hmm. That pays dividends to his acting ability. He's not giving these cartoonish evil speeches, but when he starts doing that, that's where I wished anyone else was in this role. Because I feel like he just did not have the chops for this more maniacal side of the character. Plus, there's just super random moments in the film. One where he just takes off his shirt randomly and it just felt like fan service for Josh Hartnett. And it's just like, I don't know. So I feel like it spawns from my frustration with this film that it's not like an amazing movie. It's a really good premise wrapped up in a lesser movie. Mm-hmm. And I feel like something to let it escape that lesser movie shell would be a switch in the main character, main actor. So, but you're right. I don't really have a who I would want. I don't know. Is Willem Dafoe? I don't know. It's like some weirdo, but
Nicolas Cage.
Yeah. This would be a great Nick Cage property.
How was the music in the film?
Minimal.
Because the trailer, I liked the music.
Yeah.
It had a pace to it, and that's what I liked about it. It was, you know what I mean? I like this chasing aspect to the film.
For sure.
But minimal, huh?
Yeah, because a lot of it is Lady Raven.
Yeah.
I honestly don't know if these were all made for the movie or there's her prior music or something like that. Mm-hmm. I'm not really sure. I would say actually specifically, that's where an element comes into play that this does feel like a streaming movie. This feels a little bit, lesser as far as the shell.
Can't you say that about a lot of his films?
True.
Even before streaming, they were probably kind of felt streaming movies in retrospect. You know what I mean?
Right. You pick it up on Redbox or something.
Yeah.
It
sounds like the deliverables weren't there.
Yes.
Basically.
Yes. It's a little bit not sticking the landing. It's a little bit just like the execution of the whole thing.
Right.
Music is actually one of those areas, I feel like.
That could have been souped up.
Yeah. Even just the score, just those like pensive moments. A lot of moments are like really like dead quiet in this film, and I found myself asking like, why?
Mm-hmm. It should be loud.
Yeah. It's a concert. Even that like just make it kind of like a dizzying experience.
Well, even just like those John Wick scenes where all you have is action going on and just blaring music.
Yep.
It doesn't have to be techno, but
right.
But something as maybe Josh Hartnett is working his way through this problem.
Yeah.
These issues.
Absolutely. Yeah, like a pensive, like some sort of ticking clock element to add to it. But really, I'm coming out like The Visit. I'm really pulled in some opposite directions here. Folks, I felt this was such an electric idea, but just wrapped up in a significantly lesser movie. At many times, the production quality just feels so distinctly lower budget, and it's like, man, I don't know. It deserved better, almost. Mm-hmm. I think my elevator pitch for this movie, folks, is that it's basically Shyamalan's take on the anime Death Note, especially when it comes to the game of wits between police and our killer. But like so many films this week, it just doesn't quite stick the landing and is more than a little spotty in quality in areas. Contrary to M. Night's own branding on the title of this film, I think, honestly, I would kill for another director's take on Trap, as ridiculous as that would be. With that said, we're going to go ahead and give Trap a 60 on the dot.
Okay, hey.
We're above water. We're above water.
60% is getting to an all right movie.
I think so.
Okay,
I think I would be willing to defend this enough, its premise enough that it's enough of a fun experience that you have, and such an interactive type of story that I think
There's
I'm
something there.
willing to
There's
defend.
something there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and you've totally stayed away from kind of other
Stayed
crazy
away.
stuff.
Stayed away.
The big thing I believe is what I'm picking up on. People really like where it goes or where it's going. The second half of the film is where people get dropped off completely, and you spoke a little bit towards that.
Yeah.
But not so much the holes here or there. It's just the tonal switch when you take that Shyamalan second act or third act.
Yeah.
That's what people had a lot of issues with. Is what it seems like.
Wow. I get it because there's a moment where it's like, wow, what is going to happen? Like we are off the rails in like a really good way. Like I could not even begin to predict where it was going to go. But I think by the end, it's just like, oh, okay. That's it.
Oh, boy, this week.
Yeah.
Vin, do you have any closing notes on these films here before we kind of talk about the future weeks or notes?
No, I mean, listen, I'm happy we can give some more time with Shyamalan. He really doesn't have another one in these. We don't have enough movies. I think we could technically do the Three Unbreakables, Lady in the Water, which is I don't know, and then the Avatar movie, which is like god awful.
The Airbender.
So, yeah.
Oh, just wait 2 years. It's gonna be just wait 2 years.
It's a flashback to the last episode.
Set your calendar, folks.
yeah. So we'll be back.
And coming up, in the coming weeks of daily ratings, what do we have in mind? We're closing out Western Week or Western Month.
Yeah, a little scrambled. I like last Western
August.
Month. Yeah, those. It always spills into August, but
which is fine.
Yeah, we're gonna do the Cowboys for the John Wayne slot. I do want to squeeze in Let the Corpses Tan, which will be the polar opposite of the Cowboys. Cowboys is like a family Western film. Let the Corpses Tan sounds scary by the name alone. And then for the new releases, we have the Borderlands movie.
A lot of actors.
Not excited.
A lot of actors in it.
Let me just say, gamer wisdom, looter shooters don't usually have good stories. So this is not going to be... no one's repping Borderlands story. And then I'm hoping not to be overhyped for it, but the horror movie Cuckoo... it should be in theaters and hopefully a great time. So.
Okay, excellent. Some things on the horizon there. I can't wait for the Cowboys. I thought it was coming this week, so I got to watch. I'm going to watch it again because why not? For next week. Vin, thank you so much while you're away this week, making it happen, getting these films watched. Appreciate it so much for you stopping by. And before my voice completely goes, we're going to wrap this puppy up here, folks. So on the Shyamalan dinner night, family night here, we've got After Earth with a 28%. The Visit with a 37, Old with a 38, and The Watchers with a 41. We haven't done 5 movies in a while.
Yeah, for real.
The Watchers with the 41%, and Trap, really almost seeming like a massive movie here with the 60%. So, folks, thank you so much for listening. We appreciate it so much, and we'll see you next week on the Daily Ratings Podcast. Hey, if you enjoyed the podcast, if you would, give us a good rating or get the word out and tell a friend about us. Just a reminder that Daily Ratings is completely producer-supported. We want to stay away from advertising, and we don't want to have any paywalls or tier structures or subscriptions. It's all just value for value. So, are you finding value in any of the things that we're doing here at the Daily Ratings? Then become a producer and donate whatever amount of value that is. Just go to the donations tab on thedailyratings.com, and while you're there, be sure to check out the massive amount of films that Vince has rated. So thanks so much, everybody. We'll see you next time on the Daily Ratings Podcast.